Hi everyone, you're in the Accidental Admin Playbook session. This session will be relevant to both new app managers and new account admins, but mostly we're targeting folks that recently inherited an application, a suite of applications, or even an entire QuickBase account. And you're just generally trying to figure out what in the world do you do next. Just as a quick note, this session is being recorded so you can view this session at a later time. All right, jumping into things. Who am I? Well, my name is Marisa Neumeyer. I am a customer success manager here at QuickBase. I've been with QuickBase a little over a year and a half. And like many of you that may inherit an application or a suite of apps, I came into QuickBase with no prior app building experience. In my previous life, I managed a region of retail stores while living in the Caribbean and ran into your typical business challenges on a regular basis. How does that retail experience equate to a future as an app builder? Well, after living and breathing the frustrations of a terrible workflow at my previous company, now as a CSM, I get to help my customers develop solutions to similar frustrations in their own businesses. And fast forward a year and a half, now I'm both an app builder and expert certified on QuickBase. If I can get to this point, so can you. This session is going to help answer the question of what do you do when you suddenly find yourself in charge of your company's QuickBase operations? Whether that means you've been handed a single app or the keys to an entire QuickBase account. We've been calling this the accidental admin. If you can answer yes to any of the above questions, you are in the right place. For this session, I'm going to help you provide a framework to take ownership of QuickBase and become an effective admin, whether it's for a single app or an entire account. I'm also going to help you to understand your company's use of QuickBase and really just get you on a successful path moving forward. Before we dive in, there's a playbook that everyone should have access to that follows along with this presentation. If you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, don't worry, I've got you covered. I've included this handy QR code on the slide and you can just pull it right up. If you have an iPhone, you can view the QR code through your camera app and it will automatically suggest a link. For those that don't want to view on a phone, no worries, I'll go ahead and I'll stick the link in the chat as well. I would suggest downloading a copy of this workbook for yourself and following along. Feel free to write up notes if you'd like, or just keep this as a guide to reference during your own accidental admin journey. The playbook I just mentioned is broken into 30-day periods, so everything is a bit more digestible, and that's exactly what this session will follow. Keep in mind, these timeframes can fluctuate, so this is very much just a benchmark. There are 4 phases that we're going to cover today: getting control, getting clear, getting creative, and staying current. After we cover these 4 phases, we're going to have some time left over at the end for a live Q&A session as well. I'll be monitoring the chat during the session, so if you have any technical issues or just want to say hi, feel free to do so via the chat. If you have more topic-focused questions, please submit those questions using the Q&A option on this Zoom as well. All right, phase 1 is getting control. This is set for the first 30 days, but keep in mind, it could take longer or maybe go breeze right through it. This phase is all about getting a grasp of QuickBase at a high level and easing you into how to gain control over your newly formed responsibilities. In this phase, we're going to focus on the following areas: learning the basics of the QuickBase product and gaining an understanding of your account. For example, getting to know your QuickBase account from a commercial perspective, understanding the resources that are available to you in the event that you encounter roadblocks, understanding how to manage your own QuickBase account for both the current and future state operations, and getting to know the applications that currently exist within your account so you can begin to prioritize and plan the futures of each of those applications. In your workbook, there's an overall training and education plan on page 5. During this session, I'll break it down over the course of 30-day increments, but we've consolidated it in the playbook. As showcased here, for the first 30 days, we recommend courses under the orientation, app planning, and the account admin topics. If you're an app manager, all of this is designed to help you learn the QuickBase product. And if you're owning an entire QuickBase account, the admin topics will be important for you as well. Second, getting to know your key players. In other words, who at QuickBase can help you out. First, it's important to understand who your contacts are at QuickBase so that you can leverage them to help you through this transition and your attainment of these new QuickBase responsibilities. So, who are these contacts? First, we have the account executive. All accounts are going to have an account executive, and the role of the AE is to work with you on any commercial or transactional related matters. The second is the CSM, or me, for example. CSMs can be seen as the internal partner and advocate for your organization in support of your long-term success with QuickBase. Third, we have the account managers, or the AMs, as we call them. They can assist current clients with their billing questions, manage upcoming renewals, and also assist with these commercial conversations as well. We also have our awesome care team. This is our customer service arm of our organization. The care team is the best team to get in touch with if you have any technical questions or any issues that you might experience. And this last player is optional, but very important to many of our customers. And this is our QuickBase service providers, or QSPs. These are our third-party partners. They can help you with any application builds outside of the scope of what you feel like you can handle yourself. They're also great at building integrations with other systems or any non-native solutions. There are a number of internally vetted partners listed on our QuickBase website, but you can also reach out to your account team for recommendations as well. So you have all these contacts. How do you get in contact with them? Well, your account team is always going to be listed on the account summary page in your QuickBase admin console. If you're not sure where to locate this information, page 10 of your playbook describes how an account admin can access this admin console. At the bottom of your account summary, the account team is listed. Secondly, the care team. If you haven't submitted a QuickBase care ticket before, I highly recommend it. This team is awesome and they have really quick response rates. So how to open a care ticket. On page 8, of the playbook, you can learn how to do this in greater detail. Also, to quickly note, our care team is hosting one-on-one appointments during Empower. So if you're interested, feel free to sign up for those. Now, once you've established who your contacts at QuickBase are, setting up an internal conversation with your AE or CSM is a great step to gain a bit more clarity into your account. Some key topics that you can address during this initial conversation might include, what are my users and licenses? How many do I have and how many do I have purchased? What is my account renewal date? What is my payment or billing cycle? For example, am I on a monthly, annual, quarterly, multi-year billing cycle, etc.? And then also, who is listed as my current billing contact? Those are just a couple of examples, but there are some additional suggestions in the playbook as well. All right, it's also important to note the other resources that exist outside of the people that you work with at QuickBase. So these top 3 that we just reviewed are members of the QuickBase team. The playbook has more detailed descriptions of each of these upcoming resources on page 9. I'll go over these at a high level, but I definitely suggest you familiarize yourself with these early on. First, we have the online help guide. This is like the QuickBase encyclopedia. There is so much product information out there, and this should be your go-to before creating a care case. QuickBase University. This is the resource I mentioned during the education plan slide. QuickBase University hosts all of our training videos and our live training webinars. Our corporate blog, contains the latest news about QuickBase. And we also do client features and helpful articles posted here as well. Our QuickBase community is our user forum for builders to be able to connect with one another. Definitely something you want to take advantage of. If you're struggling with something in QuickBase, most likely someone has posted about it on the community before. Or if not, what a great opportunity to ask your other fellow QuickBase builders what they would recommend and learn some more tips from others. So our service page, this is where you can view our platform performance and our planned maintenance. Our Build a Program offers a free personal account for building non-production apps, and this account is never going to expire. This is perfect for trying new things, exploring features that your current account may not have, and creating apps for personal use. And lastly, we have events. Empower isn't the only event that we host. We also host other regional events, user groups, and online webinars throughout the year. Talk to your account team or check the blog for upcoming events. Now that you know who the key QuickBase players are and all the different resources you have available at your fingertips, we're going to dive into your account at a high level. In your first 30 days, if you're an account owner, you'll definitely want to get set up as the account admin. Once you are, this is the page you'll land on in the admin console. This section shows you the fundamental information about your account plan and service plan. This account info section is going to show your account name, your account plan, your billing contact, and your default time zone. The purchased and use section is going to display the usage of your purchased user licenses, app space, and attached file space. It will also note the number of applications you have and how many of those are considered in production. Another key component to understanding your account is understanding who else can create applications and who else has account permissions. On this permissions menu, you'll see who can create applications and who has full management. You'll also understand who at the company might be able to give you insight on the account and who internally can help you get up to speed. For example, here I can see that Nathan and Megan also have full management permissions. I had no idea they were even involved with QuickBase before, but now I know they're key contacts to talk to in my onboarding process. And as a best practice, we always suggest that you have 2 people in full management to avoid future headaches. If someone is on vacation or someone at the company leaves, it can get tricky trying to add new full management admins. Although if that's the case and you happen to stumble across this, we can still help. Knowing your apps. On the apps menu, you'll see every single application that exists on your QuickBase account. You can see things like how many users have been invited, the app space, file attachment space used, the amount of API used, who's in manager of the app, significant dates, etc., etc. And a special thing to note is that we also list if an application is in production or not. What does this mean? Well, we consider an app in production if it has at least 3 users, is larger than 500 kilobytes, and is more than 90 days old. That little tidbit is also on page 10 of the playbook, as well as info on many of the other menus in the admin console that I won't be covering in this session. Why is this section important? Well, it's going to help you to prioritize which apps you tackle first. For example, which app is used the most? What app has been most recently accessed? Which app hasn't been modified in a long time? On page 11, you'll find the app prioritization, worksheet. And this is a framework to help you prioritize those apps within your account. Congratulations, you made it through the first 30 days and the end of phase 1. The full checklist can be found in the playbook, but at a high level, you should have completed the orientation, app planning, and account admin modules in QuickBase University. You should also understand the commercial side of your account, who your account team is, how to open a care case, and how to manage users within your QuickBase account. Lastly, you should have also looked through your applications to identify the highest priority apps and create a plan for the future of each of those applications. The second 30-day phase, or phase 2, in this phase, we already have control of our accounts, but now we're going to really want to understand our apps and understand why they exist. This is really the focus for this phase. Keep in mind, this may take longer than 30 days depending on how many apps you have, and that's perfectly okay if you need more time. In this phase, we're going to cover the following areas. Continuing your education on QuickBase. You'll be learning new things every day, but now you'll be considered the expert of your QuickBase apps. Your peers will be coming to you with many questions. You're going to be their new go-to individual. And back in phase 1, we identified a handful of priority apps. During phase 2, we're going to be working to gain an understanding of, first, the design intent, why the app was created in the first place, and what was the original problem it was solving. 2, how is the app structured? And 3, how is the app being used, and is it still bringing value to your organization? For phase 2 of your education plan, we're highlighting some fundamental courses under the app building module, as well as some courses under the app management module. Also, at this point, you'll probably know if you're the type of person that likes or doesn't like these training modules. If the pre-recorded training videos work well for you, great, keep it up. If not, that's totally okay. And that's why I want to highlight that we offer free live online training. You can check out our schedule here and sign up for any of the upcoming webinars offered. You might also notice on this page that the Empower section is listed here. If you ever want to refer back to this to future sessions or watch any sessions from previous years to learn something cool, this is where you can do it. I promise you'll never run out of new training opportunities on Codebase University. So, getting clear on our apps. We have a list of priority apps at this point. Now, you need to learn to understand them. Working off your priorities apps, you should be able to answer 3 basic questions. First, what's the app's original design intent? What is the app's architecture? And how are people using the app? I know what you're thinking. Those are great questions, Marisa. Now, how do I find the answers to those? Great. Well, I'm glad you asked. First off, the design intent is the definition of how the owner expects the system to perform. What that means as QuickBase is that every app is created to solve a specific problem. Over time, things evolve. Problems, processes, and all these things change. Your app needs to as well. For example, communication has evolved immensely over the years. First, humans started off sending messages to others with smoke signals, but realized that messages can only reach so far. In comes the need for something that can travel a little further distances, like a carrier pigeon. A pigeon can carry a letter a significant distance, but the world evolved again, and we needed to be able to receive messages quicker. We didn't have time to wait for a sunny day in a carrier pigeon. In comes the need for another form of technology, like a desktop computer. Great, we can go ahead and send and receive messages quickly, but we have to be tied to our desks in order to do so. And here we are, in the age of smartphones and tablets. Whether you're in the mountains or in the cities, you can check your email from anywhere. In the end, the end goal is still the same. We wanted to be able to communicate with others. The process and the requirements have just changed over time. Can you imagine if we are still trying to send smoke signals, updates about COVID-19? Yikes. I mentioned this example because this is similar to what you'll experience with your QuickBase apps. An app may have been created a certain way 10 years ago, but you'll want to ensure it's still relevant to your current business needs. Lastly, you'll want to understand why it was built. Similar to the example I mentioned above, understanding why an app was built will help you to get an idea if the app is meeting today's needs. How do we determine the design intent? You're going to want to talk to everyone involved. The best person to talk to would be the app builder itself. However, you probably became the accidental admin for a reason, so this may not be a really realistic option. But you can also talk to the other application admins. Check out the roles in the app or on the permissions tab in the admin console. These people might be able to also help clue you in on important details. Also talk to your stakeholders. Who put you in charge of the app or the account? They probably have information about the app. What department is using the app most? Find the owner of that department and start interviewing them that way as well. And lastly, the end users. These are going to be the people that are using the app every day. Surely they know why the app was created and what problem it was solving. And then just as a pro tip, in each app, you're going to have a user's menu. There's a date added field and a last visited field. Find a handful of people who have visited the app recently. They're clearly still using it, but they were likely added back to the app during its inception. They will likely be your most knowledgeable resource for the purpose of the app, and they can provide helpful insight. Once you know why the app exists, let's take a look at how it was built. This is called the app's architecture. In the playbook on page 13, there are details on how to find an app's relationship diagram. This is an example of what you might see. The relationship diagram helps you to see tables that might be central hubs of the app and where the most information is flowing. It also gives you a nice layout of all the tables and the relationships between them. If you've seen an app's relationship diagram before, hopefully it looks like this example. This is a fairly simple app. In fact, this is the relationship diagram of our complete project manager app on the QuickBase Exchange. However, keep in mind that not all apps are going to look like this. Be prepared. Sometimes it will look like this. For some apps, the relationship diagram may not help. At QuickBase, we affectionately refer to apps like these as a Frankenstein app, a snowball app, or I've also heard these being referred to as bumblebee apps, because we don't know how it flies, but somehow it flies and gets the job done. The relationship diagram is great. Well, sometimes, assuming you're not looking at a Frankenstein app. Even so, we need to go a step further than the relationship diagram. There's not enough information there. It's just the starting point. We're also going to need to know what information is included on each table and what information is being passed between those tables. As a best practice for really getting to know your app, we suggest creating a more detailed roadmap. For each of your priority apps, I want you to diagram your app. This isn't spelled out in the workbook, but I'll go ahead and cover the steps of what you'll want to do. You'll essentially be writing out each table. You can do this a number of ways. Internally, we use Glyphy or Lucidchart for creating workflow diagrams, but you can also map these out in PowerPoint or even on paper if you prefer. As we're writing out each table, you want to note the information that's being captured, the relationships, and the fields that are being passed between the tables. For example, we have this customers table that has a relationship to this projects table. You can see there are two fields listed on the customers table, and the customer name field is being passed to the projects table through this relationship. Once we're done with our app, it should look something like this. Note the different tables, relationship between the tables, fields that are brought across from the relationships, and so on. This is going to be the written out version of the app diagram. Later on, when someone requests a change of your app or you need to locate a specific field, you could click through all the tables and you'd eventually find the original field you're looking for. Or you could just reference your full app diagram you've created and easily find that original field. This is definitely worth the effort for at least one of your applications. And yet again, this is all to understand the architecture of your application. You can build a great app, but how are people going to be using it? The first thing I look at is user menu within the apps. Here you can see all the roles that exist within an app. It might look something like this example, but you want to determine if the roles within your company align with the roles of the people using the app. If all your account executives are using the team member role, maybe it makes sense to rename that role to account executive. Cleanup like this can help you in the future when assigning new people to the app. This particular example has 4 roles, but you might have an app that has 50 roles. Not to worry, you don't need to look into every single one of these roles. If your app has a lot of roles, take a look at the Users tab instead. You can use the filters to easily see which roles are actually being used and just focus on the most assigned role to start. Hopefully you remember that great tip I mentioned earlier, noting who has recently accessed the app, and of those people created, who was added back when the app was created, that one. You'll want to talk to at least one person from each role, but it's not a bad idea to get a couple of users together at once to discuss their use of the app too, just as depicted here with Will Ferrell. When you meet with a user, make it a goal to understand how the app is being used, identify ways the app could be improved, and also watch them navigate the app. You might find that the app is not as useful as they think it is. If part of the process is exporting data into Excel and then manipulating that data, well, there's certainly ways that the app can be improved to help cut out that step. Page 17 of your workbook also has some sample questions you can ask in these interviews as well. As an added bonus, in addition to learning about your app, you can also identify who can join you on your QuickBase journey. Who's naturally curious about QuickBase? You can review this feedback with your QuickBase account team, determine what's possible, determine what should be in user voice, or what should be entered as an enhancement request on user voice. At the end of your 60 days, or 100 days, however long it takes, you know your QuickBase fundamentals and you understand most of your used apps. We covered the design intent, an app diagram, and we understand how the app is being used. Now comes the really fun part. You have a good understanding of QuickBase, the design intent of your apps, and phase 3 is all about getting creative. First, you're going to learn some of the more advanced functionality within QuickBase with our intermediate and advanced courses. Second, we're going to assess your applications. We know how they exist today, but what is the ideal state? How can we make that experience better for our end users? Lastly, how can we implement new QuickBase functionality into an app? Hopefully you were able to attend the Empower product keynote. A number of awesome new enhancements were unveiled there, and hopefully it's already got you thinking about incorporating these new features into your existing apps. This phase is really all about taking ownership. Up until this point, it's been about what other people have done, how other people are using the app, but now it's your turn to take ownership and start making the app more valuable. During this phase, we're going to want you to get through the rest of the app building module, and then you can start diving into the data integration module. Start thinking about what other systems are used at your company, what information in those other platforms would be valuable within your QuickBase app as well. There's likely a way to get it there. Then last but not least, test out your QuickBase abilities by taking our free practice exam. Even if you don't pass the practice test the first time, it will give you a better idea of what areas you can focus on to further refine those skills. We're going to go back to your apps for a little bit. Go back to the design intent. So now, if you were building an app from scratch, would it do the same thing that it does today? Compare what you come up with the app you have today. Talk to the stakeholders and the end users again, and how would they build that from scratch? Has the problem evolved? Did the app never solve the problem to begin with? Or is it doing something it was never intended on doing at all? This is comparing the design intent of yesterday to the ideal state of today. Just as on the previous slide, we're going to compare the ideal app with the existing app. Did it miss the mark? Is it doing something it doesn't need to be? In this process, you're going to be drawing out the ideal state of the app through a full diagram. Once you're done with that comparison work, it's time to make a decision. Weigh the pros and cons. Here's some examples. If users are generally happy with the app and the app architecture isn't too far off the ideal state, maybe it's okay to keep the current app and just make some minor adjustments where it's needed. If the users have had a bad experience with the app, or if it's no longer solving the intended problem, maybe it's time to create a new version with a new name and just start fresh. On page 18 of your workbook, there's a worksheet to help with this decision. And most importantly, once you've made a decision, do it. Now that you've done your interviews and gathered a bunch of feedback, how can we incorporate that? If you please your end users, you'll likely have a much easier time getting buy-in and adoption, making it easier to use. The more it's being used, the more complete and better the data will be. So, looking at the feedback you gathered during your interviews, what small modifications can we add to delight your end users? Which are quick and easy wins that will likely increase usage and adoption? Some examples of some easy delighters: adding in reporting that your users have been asking for, updating the dashboards, customizing these per role, or even updating forms to only show fields that pertain to one role, and then maybe another form to show fields that pertain to a different role. You can also implement a feedback loop. This can be as easy as creating a table in each of your apps where users can come in to enter feedback about the app you've created, what improvements they'd like to see, what they don't like about the app, etc. Or you could just have an entire app dedicated to end user feedback as well. That's also an option. This app, for example, is an application created by one of our customer success managers, and it is a way to give customers an easy way to solicit end user feedback. It's going to provide you with a framework and a model for tracking and managing your end user feedback for one app or even across the sprawling app ecosystem. If you're interested in using this app for your own user feedback, or even just as a reference tool for creating your own, feel free to download this right from the Exchange. It's called the Feedback app. At the end of your 90 days, or however long it takes you, I promise no one's counting, you've completed the majority of QuickBase University. Congratulations if you've also become certified. If you put in all that effort to learn the material, there's really no reason you shouldn't pass the certification test with flying colors. Go ahead and give it a shot. Within this time frame, you'll also have decided the state of your priority applications. You have decided if they are still useful as is, they need some adjustments, or you should probably make a new iteration of this app altogether. You have also created a plan for those changes or rebuilds, and you've collaborated with your stakeholders and your end users. Lastly, you've done some additional research to assess new functionality, which I'm about to touch on now. Congratulations, you've made it through 90 days in roughly 30 minutes. Now, if only quarantine could also go by this quickly. So, what's next? Well, we want you to stay current. Keep your toolkit sharp. There are a number of different resources that can be utilized for continued learning. These are just a handful of quick suggestions, but you can find a more detailed list on page 21 of your workbook. And last, but certainly not least, you're going to want to start putting some processes in place. I would suggest connecting with your AE or your CSM if you want ideas on how to move forward. You can also check out page 21 on your workbook for more details. Again, the upcoming list is just a brief overview on steps you can take. For example, you could develop a process to conduct regular app assessments. You can start building out your internal QuickBase team to help manage your company's applications. There's always more power in numbers. And you can stay up to date on product improvements. QuickBase has a monthly release of new features. You can either subscribe to the updates so you're first to know when those updates go live, or just check back on the website often for those updates. So for staying knowledgeable on the product, hopefully I've mentioned certification enough during the session that you're either wondering what it is, or you're just excited to be certified so you don't have to hear me talk about it again. Well, I'm going to do it once more. There are two different tracks for certification. There is the App Builder and the Expert Builder certification. Both of these are crucial for staying sharp in QuickBase. As some additional recommendations, I always recommend going on this journey with a teammate. Work through the university together, build apps together, and prep for certification together. There's a prep course and a practice exam available. Make sure to take use of those. And then after you're certified, make sure to maintain that certification. You can do this by keeping up to date with the new features and functions within QuickBase, participate in QuickBase Continuing Education courses if they're available, And you can also attend things such as webinars, user groups, etc. for credit towards your following year's certification. To stay informed on product, hopefully you're able to attend the product keynote, but if not, you can always view the recording if you missed it. You can also subscribe to the monthly release notes as well. For your apps and accounts, you're going to put a plan into place. How often should you assess your apps? Create a feedback loop and document what you have learned in your QuickBase workbook. And any changes you make in the future, make sure to always document those in your workbook as well. And continue building value within QuickBase by building new apps. And also training someone to help you manage the account. Go ahead, bring someone along for the ride, give them their own workbook. And lastly, sign up for Empower 2021 or other regional events to meet and brainstorm with those other QuickBase builders. Folks, we've reached the end of our time together. It's been quite the journey, so I'm going to quickly recap what we've covered in each phase before we jump over to Q&A. Phase 1 was all about getting control. In this phase, we learned you learned about working to understand your account, learn the basic of QuickBase, and you also prioritized your QuickBase apps. In phase 2, we focused on getting clear. Here, we covered how you can understand why your company app exists, what the structure is like, and how the app is being used within your company. Phase 3 was the fun part of getting creative. In this phase, we explored the advanced courses you can take to up your QuickBase game. We also covered how you can assess your QuickBase apps and decide if they're still useful for your organization. And this is also where you finally get to take ownership of your apps and start making changes to delight your end users and generally become the QuickBase hero within your organization. Last but not least, phase 4. Here, we covered how you can stay current by keeping up on your skills, putting processes into place, and continually building value within your company's applications. Congratulations! Not only did we make it through this journey together, but you've also come from being an accidental admin to a QuickBase aficionado and professional admin. Once you get to this phase, feel free to show your boss your completed accidental admin workbook and tell them that Marisa at QuickBase said you deserve a raise. Thank you all for attending. And before we dive into Q&A, I wanted to put a quick reminder that we'd love to hear your feedback on this session. Thanks, everyone.